Wealthy wife pretends to be in a coma. Husband showed up with his mistress to claim her wealth. Today's story is about Emma Richards, a self-made businesswoman. She built a luxury car dealership empire from nothing. She had wealth, success, and what she thought was a loving marriage. Until a car accident changed everything. The first thing Emma Richards became aware of was pain. Dull, throbbing pain radiating through her body. Her eyelids felt heavy, too heavy to open. But her mind was beginning to clear. Hospital sounds filtered in. The steady beep of monitors, the squeak of shoes on linoleum floors, hushed voices of medical personnel. She remembered fragments, driving home from work, her phone ringing. James sounding panicked about some emergency at the office. Then the bridge. The moment she pressed the brake pedal and nothing happened. The horrifying feeling of acceleration instead of stopping. The guardrail. The plunge. Emma tried to open her eyes, but a wave of nausea stopped her. She lay still, trying to orient herself. When she heard the door to her room open. "How is she today?" James's voice. Her husband of 8 years. Relief washed over her. He was here. Everything would be okay. "No change, Mr. Richards," a female voice responded. Likely a nurse. "The doctor will be in shortly to discuss her condition." "Thank you." James's voice sounded strained, concerned. Emma tried again to open her eyes, to signal she was awake. But her body refused to cooperate. She heard the nurse leave, the door closing softly. Then unexpectedly, she heard a second voice, a woman's voice. Familiar. "Is she still out?" The voice was hushed, intimate. Completely unconscious, the doctor says she might never wake up. James's voice had changed completely. No longer strained, but almost relieved. "So our plan worked perfectly," he said. The woman giggled softly. Emma's mind froze. That voice. Vanessa. Her personal assistant of 3 years. "The brake failure worked better than we expected," James said. His voice now casual, almost cheerful. "Now we just wait for nature to take its course." A soft rustle of fabric. The sound of a kiss. "You're brilliant, James." "I knew you could pull it off," Vanessa said. Emma's heart began to race. The monitor beside her beeping slightly faster. She forced herself to breathe slowly, evenly. Terrified they would notice she was conscious. "Careful," James whispered. "Even like this, she's still causing trouble." "How long do we have to wait?" Vanessa asked. Impatience clear in her tone. "Not long. I've already spoken to her lawyers. With her in this condition, as her husband, I get control of everything. The dealerships, the properties, her accounts. All of it. And once you have control?" Vanessa pressed. "Then we have a tragic conversation with the doctors about quality of life and her wishes not to be kept alive by machines." James's voice was cold, calculating. "Emma always was very clear about that, wasn't she?" Vanessa said. "Lucky to have such an attentive husband who remembered her wishes." They laughed together. The sound piercing Emma's heart like a physical blow. "I still can't believe how easy it was," Vanessa said. Moving around the room, Emma could hear her heels clicking on the floor. A call about an emergency at the office. Her rushing to that old bridge where no one would see anything. "The mechanic I paid did excellent work. The brake line cut just enough to fail when she needed it most," James said. And with her car at the bottom of that ravine, no one would look too closely at a simple mechanical failure. Emma felt sick. The car accident wasn't an accident at all. Her husband had tried to kill her. Was still trying to kill her. And her own assistant was his accomplice. "Do you think anyone suspects anything?" Vanessa asked. "Who would?" "Everyone knows we were the perfect couple," James laughed bitterly. "Only you and I know what a cold, controlling which she really was. Always working, always expanding the business, treating me like I was just another employee rather than her husband." "Well, soon you'll have all her money without having to deal with her anymore," Vanessa said. "And I'll finally get what I deserve after watching her parade around like she was so special," Vanessa added. A sound of a drawer opening. "Looking for these?" James asked. Her diamond earrings. Vanessa squealed softly. "The ones she never let me borrow." "Do you mind if I?" "They're yours now, baby." Everything of hers is ours now. Emma felt a presence close to her bed. Could smell Vanessa's distinctive perfume. I've always known I'd look better in these anyway, Vanessa said, presumably admiring herself in a mirror. In that moment, Emma made a decision that would change everything. She would not open her eyes, would not let them know she was conscious. She would pretend to be in a coma until she could figure out how to protect herself. Because if James discovered she was awake, he would surely find another way to finish what he'd started. The next day, Emma heard the door open and close. She kept her breathing even, her body still. Good morning, Mrs. Richards. I'm Dr. Patel. I'll just be checking your vitals. Emma felt gentle hands checking the monitors, adjusting something on her arm. She heard the doctor making notes, his pen scratching on paper. He was alone. This might be her only chance. Slowly, carefully, Emma opened her eyes just to a crack. The light was blinding after so long in darkness. Mrs. Richards, the doctor gasped, leaning closer. Emma opened her eyes fully, looking directly at the startled doctor. She raised a trembling finger to her lips. Please, she whispered, her voice rough from disuse. Don't tell anyone I'm awake. Dr. Patel stared at her in shock. Mrs. Richards, this is wonderful news. Your husband will be... No. Please, Emma rasped urgently, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. My husband. He did this to me. He and my assistant. They tried to kill me. I heard them talking. Dr. Patel's expression changed from joy to concern. Mrs. Richards, you've been through a traumatic experience. Sometimes patients experience confusion or... The brake lines, Emma insisted. He paid someone to cut my brake lines. They're waiting for me to die so they can take my money. Please. If he knows I'm awake, he'll try again. The doctor studied her face intently. That's a very serious accusation, he said. I know, Emma whispered. But I heard them. They didn't know I could hear everything. Please. Dr. Patel. I need time. Time to figure out how to protect myself. Dr. Patel glanced at the door, then back at Emma. If what you're saying is true, you could be in danger. I know I am, Emma said, a tear sliding down her cheek. Will you help me? After a long moment, Dr. Patel nodded. I'll continue to report no change in your condition. But Mrs. Richards, I can't maintain this deception indefinitely. We need to involve the authorities. Not yet, Emma pleaded. James has connections with the local police. I need evidence first. Please. Just give me time. I'll help you. Dr. Patel finally agreed. But only for a short while. And if at any point I believe you're in immediate danger, I'll have to act. Thank you, Emma whispered, closing her eyes as they heard footsteps approaching. By the time James entered the room, Emma appeared completely unconscious again. And Dr. Patel was calmly checking her chart. Any changes, doctor? James asked, his voice perfectly calibrated to sound concerned. No significant changes, Mr. Richards, Dr. Patel replied. Her condition remained stable but unchanged. I see, James said. And Emma could hear the disappointment he was trying to mask. How long do you think she'll remain like this? It's impossible to say. Brain injuries are unpredictable. Some patients wake up after days, others after months or years. Some, unfortunately, never regain consciousness. And what are her chances of waking up? James pressed. Given the extent of her injuries and the time that's passed without improvement, I would say the chances are increasingly slim. But we don't give up hope, Mr. Richards. Of course not, James said smoothly. I just need to be realistic about her care and what she would want. I understand. We can discuss options in my office later this week. For now, talk to her. Some patients can hear even in this state. Emma, James said softly, but there was no affection in his voice. You always did have to do everything the hard way. Couldn't just die quickly in the accident, could you? Always have to be in control. He sighed dramatically. You know none of this would have happened if you just appreciated what you had. If you treated me like a husband instead of an accessory. His voice hardened. Do you know how it feels to be introduced as Emma Richards' husband at every event? To have everyone know you're just the trophy husband she picked up before she got rich. Emma felt his hand take hers, and she fought the urge to pull away. Well, I guess I should thank you for this at least, he continued. Your condition has everyone so sympathetic. Poor James. They all say no one questions me taking over the business decisions. Your empire is already starting to become mine. He placed her hand back on the bed carelessly. Vanessa is much better suited to be my wife anyway. She understands what a woman's role should be, and she's 10 years younger than you. Did I ever mention that? Emma heard him stand up, felt him lean over her. Just between us, he whispered near her ear. I hope you can hear me. I hope somewhere in that brain of yours you know exactly what's happening and can't do a thing about it. That would be perfect justice for how powerless you made me feel all these years. As James left the room, Emma allowed herself a single tear. How had she never seen the hatred beneath his charming exterior? Had it always been there, or had it grown over time? She had built her dealership chain from a single failing location she'd purchased with every cent of her savings. She'd worked 18-hour days for years, turning it into the most successful luxury car enterprise in 3 states. James had come into her life when she'd just begun to succeed, charming her with his attention and support, or what she had thought was support. Now she understood. He had never been proud of her success. He had been waiting to steal it. Over the next few days, Emma learned more about her situation than she ever wanted to know. James visited daily, always putting on a show of the devoted husband when staff was present. But the moment he was alone, the mask would drop. He brought Vanessa with him frequently. They would talk openly about their plans, confident that Emma couldn't hear them. The transfer of the downtown property went through today, James said during one visit. Her signature looks surprisingly good, doesn't it? You've had enough practice. The way you forge it is better than her actual signature, Vanessa laughed. The benefit of watching her sign documents for years. The best part is no one questions it. Why would they? Everyone knows I've been handling things while she's been indisposed. Emma's mind raced. He was forging her signature, transferring her properties. How many had he already stolen? How much damage had been done? What about the dealerships? Vanessa asked. The main one is still tricky. That David guy is being difficult about some of the changes I want to make. The operations manager. I thought you fired him. I did. But he's still causing problems, questioning the authenticity of the paperwork, suggesting we get second opinions on Emma's condition. He's too loyal to her. Can't you just replace him completely? Not yet. He knows too much about how she ran things. I need to learn more before I can push him out entirely. But soon, Emma felt a surge of hope. David was questioning things. David was still loyal. She had hired him 5 years ago, recognizing his integrity and intelligence. Maybe he could be an ally. Later that week, Emma heard James arguing with someone outside her door. I told you you're not authorized to visit her anymore, James was saying angrily. I worked with Emma for 5 years, Mr. Richards. It was David's voice. I just want to see how she's doing. She's exactly the same as she was when you asked last week. Unconscious. Unresponsive. The doctors say there's little hope of recovery. So, what's the harm in letting me see her? I'm trying to move forward, James said, his voice taking on a wounded tone that Emma now recognized as completely false. Having her former employees parade through here makes it harder to accept what's happening. 10 minutes, David pressed. That's all I'm asking. Fine. James relented after a pause. 10 minutes. But this is the last time. Understand. I'm her husband. I decide who visits and who doesn't. The door opened and Emma could sense James's irritation as he let David enter. 10 minutes, James repeated. I'll be right outside. The door closed and Emma heard David approach her bed. Hey, Emma, he said softly. It's David. His voice was gentle. So different from how James spoke to her when they were alone. Things aren't going well at the company, David continued. James is making changes. Big ones. Selling properties. Firing people you've had for years. He sighed heavily. I tried to stop him. Told him you wouldn't want this. But he says he has power of attorney now. Something doesn't feel right about any of this, Emma. The accident. James taking control so quickly. I've been asking questions. Maybe too many questions. He fired me yesterday. Emma felt a surge of anger. David had been the backbone of her operations. The one person she trusted implicitly with her business. I don't care about the job, David continued. But I care about what's happening to everything you built. And his voice dropped lower. I care about what happened to you. The police report on your accident seems simplified. No real investigation into the brake failure. Just mechanical error. Emma felt a tear slide down her cheek before she could control it. Emma, if you can hear me, I'm going to find out what really happened. I promise you that. The door opened abruptly. Time's up, James said coldly. I was just saying goodbye, David replied. And Emma, you won't be a problem much longer. After David left, James approached Emma's bed. Loyal employees, he scoffed. Always sticking their noses where they don't belong. Don't worry, dear wife. He won't be a problem much longer. Emma's thoughts raced. She needed to find a way to communicate with David. But how? How could she reach out without James discovering she was conscious? 2 weeks after Emma first regained consciousness, she overheard a conversation that chilled her to the bone. I'd like to discuss end-of-life options for my wife, James was saying to Dr. Patel. They were standing just inside her room, James having requested a private consultation. Mr. Richards, while your wife's condition is not improved, it hasn't deteriorated either, Dr. Patel replied cautiously. It's quite early to be having this discussion. Doctor, I know my wife. Emma was always very clear about not wanting to be kept alive by machines if there was no hope of recovery. You said yourself that her chances of waking up diminish with each passing day. That's generally true, but I need closure, doctor. Seeing her like this day after day is destroying me. And managing her business affairs while dealing with this emotional toll. I'm barely holding it together. Dr. Patel was silent for a moment. Mr. Richards, I understand this is difficult, but we typically don't consider removing life support until all possibilities of recovery have been exhausted. Your wife is breathing on her own. Her brain shows activity. These are positive signs, but she's not waking up. James pressed. How long do I have to wait before we can make this decision? Weeks? Months? Years? It's not what Emma would want, Dr. Patel said firmly. As her physician, I would not support removing care at this stage. It would be premature and, in my professional opinion, inappropriate. I see, James said, his voice cooling. Perhaps I should speak with the hospital administration about bringing in another doctor for a second opinion. Someone who might be more understanding of our situation. That is your right, Dr. Patel replied stiffly. But I'm confident any ethical physician would give you the same answer. At this stage, we'll see about that. After Dr. Patel left, James approached Emma's bed. You always did inspire such misplaced loyalty, he muttered. First David, now this doctor. But it doesn't matter. I'll find someone more cooperative. Someone who understands that sometimes letting go is the kindest option. Later that evening, when the room was quiet and Emma was alone, the door opened softly. Light footsteps approached her bed. Mrs. Richards, it's Sarah. Your night nurse. Emma kept perfectly still, maintaining her comatose appearance. I'm just checking your vitals, Sarah continued, adjusting something on the monitors. Then her voice dropped to a whisper. Dr. Patel asked me to keep a special eye on you. To let him know if anything unusual happens with your husband's visits. Emma felt her pulse quicken slightly. Your heart rate just increased, Sarah noted. I've been watching you for a while now, Mrs. Richards. I've noticed things, how your heart rate changes when certain people are in the room. The tear when your manager visited. The tension in your face when your husband is here. Sarah leaned closer. Mrs. Richards, if you can hear me, I want you to know you're not alone. Dr. Patel has concerns, and so do I. If you can hear me, if you're in there, blink. Emma hesitated. Could she trust this nurse? What if it was a trap set by James? Your husband isn't here, Sarah reassured her, as if reading her thoughts. It's just you and me. If you can hear me, please give me some sign. Taking a leap of faith, Emma slowly opened her eyes. Sarah gasped softly, her eyes widening. You are conscious, she whispered. Emma rasped, her voice weak from disuse. He can't know. My husband. He did this to me. The accident. He wants me dead. Sarah looked stunned. Dr. Patel suspected something wasn't right. But this. He's trying to get my life support removed. He's stealing everything I own. Please. I need help. I'll tell Dr. Patel right away, Sarah said. We should contact the police. No, Emma interrupted. Not yet. James has friends in the department. I need evidence first. Proof of what he did. How can I help? Sarah asked. Help me stay alive, Emma pleaded. And help me find a way to communicate with David, my former operations manager. He's already suspicious. He might be able to find evidence of what James has done. Sarah nodded. I can do that. And I have something else that might interest you. There's a man who's been coming by the hospital asking about you. Security keeps turning him away because he's not on your approved visitors list. A man who says his name is Max. He says he was there when your car went off the bridge. That he pulled you out before the car exploded. Your husband has been telling everyone you were rescued by emergency services, but this man insists it was him. Emma felt a jolt of recognition. She had a vague memory of rough hands pulling her from the wreckage, a bearded face looming over her, telling her to hold on. Find him, Emma whispered. Please. I will, Sarah promised. And in the meantime, I'll help you build your strength. When no one's around. If your husband is planning what you say, you'll need to be ready. For the first time since waking up to her nightmare, Emma felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone anymore. She had allies now. She just needed to stay alive long enough to expose the truth. The next morning, when Emma was alone, Sarah slipped into her room carrying a small duffel bag. Good morning, she whispered, checking that the door was fully closed. I've brought some things to help with your physical therapy. Emma opened her eyes, still marveling at the simple freedom of being able to do so when it was safe. Any news about Max? Emma asked. I found him, Sarah confirmed, pulling small hand weights and resistance bands from her bag. He's been living under the bridge where your accident happened. Seems he feels responsible for you in some way. How did you find him? I asked around at the shelter where I volunteer on weekends. He comes in sometimes for meals. Sarah helped Emma sit up slightly, supporting her back. He's agreed to meet with me after my shift today. I'll bring him here tomorrow night when the floor is quiet. Thank you, Emma said sincerely. What about David? That's trickier. Your husband has specifically instructed security not to allow him in the building. But I have an idea about that too. Sarah showed Emma how to grip one of the small weights. Let's work on your hand strength first. You've lost muscle tone from being immobile. As they worked through gentle exercises, Sarah explained her plan. I have a friend who works at your main dealership. I can pass a message to David through her. If he can meet me away from the hospital, we can figure out a way for him to see you without your husband knowing. Emma winced at the pain in her atrophied muscles, but pushed through it. James is becoming more aggressive about removing my life support. He's looking for a different doctor who will approve it. Dr. Patel is fighting it. Sarah assured her, he's documenting every positive sign in your condition to build a case against withdrawal of care. But what your husband is persistent. He's telling everyone how dedicated he is to honoring your wishes. Sarah helped Emma extend her arm carefully. He's very convincing. Even some of the staff are starting to sympathize with him. He's always been good at manipulating people. Emma said bitterly, it's why I never saw the truth until it was too late. They worked in silence for a few minutes. Emma fighting through the discomfort of muscles awakening after weeks of disuse. Can I ask you something personal? Sarah finally said. Of course, Emma replied. Why is he doing this? Just for your money. Emma sighed. I think it started that way. James came into my life when my business was just beginning to take off. He was charming, attentive. Everything I thought I wanted. I was so busy building my company that I didn't see what was happening. Which was he resented my success. My independence. He wanted the lifestyle my money could provide. But he hated that it came from me. Emma's voice hardened. And then he met Vanessa. My assistant. She made him feel powerful in ways I never did. They've been planning this for over a year from what I've overheard. Sarah shook her head. It's hard to imagine living with someone who could do this. The worst part is I never saw it coming. Emma let her arm drop, exhausted from the simple exercise. I thought we were happy. Or at least content. I knew we'd grown apart. But murder? I never suspected he hated me enough to want me dead. We'll stop him, Sarah promised, helping Emma back into a reclining position. But for now, you need to rest. I'll be back tonight with more exercises. And tomorrow I'll bring Max. After Sarah left, Emma closed her eyes. Not pretending this time, but truly resting. Her mind was clearer now than it had been since the accident. And with clarity came determination. James might have tried to take everything from her, but he had underestimated her. He always had. The next night, true to her word, Sarah returned with a visitor. Emma, who had been fighting unconsciousness as she always did when the door opened, heard two sets of footsteps enter her room. "It's just us," Sarah whispered. "You can open your eyes." Emma looked up to see Sarah standing beside a tall, bearded man in worn clothes. He stared at Emma with a mixture of shock and relief. "You're awake," he said, his voice gruff but gentle. "Max," Emma said, recognizing him from her fragmented memories. "You pulled me from the car." He nodded, moving awkwardly to the side of her bed. "Didn't think you'd remember that part." "Not clearly. I remember someone telling me to hold on." "That was you, wasn't it?" "Yeah." Max shifted uncomfortably, clearly unused to being the center of attention. "I was living under that bridge. Heard the crash. Saw your car go over. By the time I got down there, water was already filling it up." "You saved my life," Emma said softly. Max shrugged. "Didn't do much good if your husband's trying to finish the job." Emma exchanged a glance with Sarah. "You know about that?" "I've been watching him," Max said simply. Something seemed off from the beginning. The way he acted at the accident scene. He wasn't right. "What do you mean?" Emma asked, sitting up straighter. "When the paramedics arrived, he was—" "I don't know, not like a man whose wife just nearly died. He was asking about your condition, sure. But it was like he was checking boxes. And then later, I saw him at your dealership. A few days after the accident. I went there because I found your business card in the car when I pulled you out. Thought someone should know what really happened. But when I got there, I saw him in the parking lot with that woman, Vanessa," Max continued. Emma supplied, "Yeah, her." They were celebrating, hugging, laughing. It wasn't right, Max's eyes darkened. "So I started paying attention. And then I overheard them talking about the brakes." Emma's heart raced. "You heard them admit to tampering with my car?" Max nodded. "They didn't see me. I was collecting cans from the dealership dumpster. They were in the back lot. Thought they were alone. The woman, Vanessa, she was worried about the police investigation. Your husband told her not to worry. That he'd paid the mechanic well to make it look like simple brake failure from wear and tear." Emma said urgently, "Would you be willing to tell this to the police?" He hesitated. "Police and I don't exactly get along. And who would believe me over a rich businessman?" "They would if we had proof," Sarah interjected. "Max, did you happen to see which mechanic they were talking about?" "Better than that," Max said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "I went to the junkyard where they took your car. Security's pretty lax there at night. I found these." He pulled out a plastic bag containing what looked like damaged brake line components. "The mechanic cut the line most of the way through, but made it look like normal wear," Max explained. "These parts still have the tool marks on them. A forensic expert could prove it wasn't accidental failure." Emma stared at the evidence in amazement. "Max, this is—" "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything yet," Max replied, putting the parts away carefully. "We still need to catch them admitting what they did. Your word against his isn't enough. And these parts alone won't prove who did the cutting." Sarah touched Emma's shoulder. "I have more news. I got a message to David. He's going to meet me tomorrow at the coffee shop across the street. I told him it was about you, but I didn't explain everything yet." "Good," Emma said, her mind racing with possibilities. "We need to be careful about how much we share and with whom. James has been forging my signature on documents. David might be able to help prove that." "There's something else you should know," Sarah said hesitantly. "Your husband came by earlier today while you were sleeping. He was with another doctor, a specialist from another hospital. They were discussing your condition. And the new doctor seemed much more amenable to the idea of withdrawing care." Emma felt cold fear wash over her. "How soon?" "I'm not sure. But from what I overheard, they're talking about making a decision within the week." "Then we don't have much time," Emma said firmly. "We need to coordinate our efforts. When you meet with David tomorrow, bring him up to speed. But be careful. If James suspects anything, he could accelerate his plans." "I'll be careful," Sarah promised. "Max," Emma continued, "can you keep those brake components safe? They're the best physical evidence." He nodded. "Got them hidden where no one will find them." "Good. And I need to keep building my strength," Emma said, determination hardening her voice. "When the moment comes to confront James, I need to be ready." As they finalized their plans, Emma felt something she hadn't experienced since before the accident. Purpose. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was fighting back. And with these unexpected allies at her side, she finally had a chance at justice. The following evening, Sarah returned to Emma's room looking energized. "I met with David," she said as soon as she'd closed the door. "He's been investigating James on his own. He gathered quite a bit of evidence already." "What kind of evidence?" Emma sat up eagerly. "Financial records showing James has been systematically transferring your assets to new accounts under his control. Forged signatures on legal documents. And he's found a pattern in James's past that you might find interesting." "What pattern?" Sarah helped Emma with her exercises as she explained. "Before James met you, he dated 2 other wealthy women. Both relationships ended when the women suddenly experienced financial problems. One lost her business and what appeared to be a series of bad investments. The other had her identity stolen, resulting in massive debt." "You think James was responsible?" Emma asked. "David is certain of it. He's been tracking down these women. One of them is willing to talk about what happened." Emma processed this information as she worked on strengthening her legs. "So I wasn't his first target. Just his most ambitious one," she said. "Exactly. But here's the good news. David has contacts in the district attorney's office who aren't connected to James's friends and the local police. He thinks we have enough to start building a case. But we need something definitive. James and Vanessa explicitly discussing their plan. And we need it quickly." Emma added grimly. "James is pushing to have my life support removed within days." Sarah nodded. "That's why David brought this." She reached into her pocket and pulled out what looked like a small decorative pin. "It's a recording device. We can hide it in your room to capture their conversations when they think no one is listening." "Will it work?" Emma asked, examining the tiny device. "David says it has excellent audio quality and can record for hours. The challenge is hiding it somewhere James won't notice, but where it can still pick up their voices clearly." They decided to attach the device to the underside of the bedside table, positioning it carefully to capture conversations around Emma's bed. "Now we wait," Sarah said, "and hope they say something incriminating enough to use against them." "If they don't," Emma asked, "then Dr. Patel and I will have to take official action based on our suspicions. It might not be enough to prove James's guilt, but it should be enough to prevent him from removing your life support while an investigation takes place." The next day, Emma maintained her comatose facade as James arrived with Vanessa and tow. They seemed particularly animated. "Everything's set," James was saying as they entered. "I've convinced the hospital ethics committee to meet tomorrow to discuss Emma's case. The new specialist is fully on board with our perspective." "How long after the meeting until they know?" Vanessa asked. "If all goes as planned, they could remove life support as early as the day after tomorrow." James sounded pleased with himself. "Dr. Patel is still objecting, of course. But he's being overruled. I've made quite an impression as the devoted husband making the difficult but loving choice." "I've always been a good actor," James said. "It's almost over, baby," Vanessa giggled. "You've always been a good actor," she teased. "It's almost over, baby," James said, and Emma could hear the sound of them kissing. "By this time tomorrow, we'll be finalizing the last of the paperwork. I've already transferred most of the major assets. The dealerships are next." "What about that manager, David? Is he still causing problems?" Vanessa asked. "Not for much longer," James said darkly. "I've arranged for some discrepancies to be found in the accounting at the main dealership. By the time I'm done, he'll be facing embezzlement charges." Emma felt a surge of anger. Not only was James trying to kill her, but he was also planning to destroy David's reputation and possibly send him to prison. "You think of everything," Vanessa purred. "That's why I love you." "The accident should have finished her off properly," James said, his voice hardening as he presumably looked at Emma. "But this way works too. Cleaner in some ways. No one will question a grieving husband inheriting his wife's fortune after making the painful decision to let her go when there was no hope of recovery." "How much longer do we have to keep visiting her like this?" Vanessa complained. "It's depressing. Just until it's done. We need to maintain appearances. Besides," James added with a cold laugh, "I rather enjoy these little chats. Telling her exactly what we've done, knowing she can't do a thing about it." Emma asked herself, when James and Vanessa are here discussing the final details of their plan, thinking I can't hear them, that's when I'll reveal I've been conscious all along. "Are you sure you're strong enough?" Sarah asked with concern. "I have to be," Emma said firmly. James needs to see me awake. To know that I heard everything, that I know exactly what he did. It's risky, Max warned. He might become violent when he realizes you've been faking. That's why you'll all be nearby, Emma said. And why Detective Rivera and her officers will be just outside. They've finalized the details of their plan, each person knowing their role. As her allies left to get some rest before the confrontation, Emma lay back in her bed, her mind racing. Tomorrow would change everything. Either she would reclaim her life and see justice done, or James would find a way to silence her permanently. Either way, the pretense would finally be over. The next morning dawned with a tense energy. Emma went through her usual routine of pretending to be unconscious during the shift change and morning rounds. Dr. Patel came in for his examination, speaking to her normally for the benefit of any observers while slipping her updates in a whispered tone. The ethics committee is meeting now, he murmured while checking her vitals. I've presented all the medical evidence against withdrawal of care. But James's new specialist is quite persuasive. And James himself gave quite a performance about honoring your wishes. Emma squeezed his hand slightly in acknowledgement. Detective Rivera is in position, Dr. Patel continued quietly. She has officers stationed around the floor, dressed as hospital personnel. No one will recognize them. After he left, Emma focused on controlling her breathing and staying calm. Everything hinged on timing now. Sarah had helped her apply a minimal amount of makeup early that morning. Enough to give her some color, but not enough that James would notice. The recording device was in place with a fresh battery to ensure it captured everything. Around noon, Sarah slipped in to give Emma an update. The ethics committee approved withdrawal of care, she said grimly. They've scheduled it for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Emma felt a chill run through her. Then this is our only chance. James and Vanessa are coming at 2 p.m. with the lawyer. David and Max are already in position. Detective Rivera has reviewed all our evidence and is prepared to make arrests based on what she already has. But the recording we get today will seal the case. Sarah helped Emma sit up and stretch, working through their now familiar routine of exercises designed to prepare her for what was coming. By the time Sarah left to take her position, Emma felt as ready as she could be. At precisely 2 p.m., Emma heard James's voice in the hallway along with Vanessa's and a third voice she didn't recognize. Presumably the lawyer. She settled back into her coma position, eyes closed, breathing even, face relaxed. The door opened and 3 people entered. As you can see, counselor, my wife's condition remains unchanged, James was saying, his voice carrying that perfect note of practiced grief. The ethics committee has approved withdrawal of care for tomorrow morning. I understand, Mr. Richards, the lawyer replied. And you're certain this is what your wife would want? Absolutely, James affirmed. Emma was always clear about not wanting extraordinary measures if there was no hope of recovery. As painful as it is, I'm honoring her wishes. Very well, the lawyer said. Let's review the final transfer documents for the dealerships. Once these are signed, all of Mrs. Richards' business holdings will be legally under your control. Emma heard the rustle of papers, the scrape of chairs as they seated themselves near her bed. Just to confirm, the lawyer continued. These transfers are being done under the power of attorney Mrs. Richards granted you before her accident. That's correct, James lied smoothly. Emma trusted me implicitly with all her affairs. Emma had never signed any such document, and they all knew it. The power of attorney James was using was a forgery, like so many other documents. The timing is fortunate, the lawyer remarked. Having these transfers completed before tomorrow's procedure will simplify the estate considerably. Yes, it will, James agreed. Emma would have wanted a clean transition with minimal disruption to the businesses she built. The casual hypocrisy of his words made Emma's blood boil. But she maintained her facade as the lawyer guided James through the documents. Finally, these transfers would be subject to challenge if she were to regain consciousness and dispute them, the lawyer pressed. Trust me, counselor, James said coldly. That won't be an issue. After tomorrow, the ventilator comes off at 9 a.m., and that's that. The doctors say it shouldn't take long after that. Emma had heard enough. It was time. Slowly, deliberately, she opened her eyes. The room came into focus, James and Vanessa standing near the foot of her bed, the lawyer gathering papers by the window. all three with their backs to her. Emma pushed herself up slightly and said in a clear, steady voice, "I wouldn't want that at all, James." The effect was instantaneous. The lawyer dropped his papers. Vanessa screamed. James turned slowly, his face draining of color as he stared at his very conscious wife. "Emma," he whispered, shock and horror mingling in his expression. "Surprise," Emma said, her voice stronger than even she had expected. "I've been awake for weeks." "That's impossible," James stammered. "The doctor said they said what I asked them to say. After I overheard you and Vanessa celebrating your successful plan the day I regained consciousness," Emma continued. "I heard everything, every conversation, every plan, every cruel remark you made at my bedside, thinking I couldn't hear you." The lawyer moved toward the door. "I should go." "Stay right there," ordered a new voice as the door opened. Detective Rivera entered, flanked by two uniformed officers. "No one is leaving yet." James's eyes darted between Emma and the detective. "What is this?" "James Richards," Detective Rivera said formally. "You're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy." "This is ridiculous," James protested. "My wife has just awakened from a coma." "She's confused, disoriented. Whatever she thinks she heard, we don't need her testimony." The detective cut in. "Though, it will certainly help." She held up a small device. "We have recordings of your conversations in this room. Very incriminating conversations." "You can't record people without their knowledge," James argued. "Any recordings would be inadmissible." "Actually," David said, entering the room with Sarah and Max behind him. "In this state, only one party needs to consent to a recording." Emma consented. "And we have more than just recordings," Max added, stepping forward with the plastic bag containing the brake components. "Physical evidence of tampering with her car." Vanessa suddenly made a break for the door, shoving past one of the officers, but was quickly apprehended in the hallway. James's facade finally cracked, his face contorted with rage as he looked at Emma. "You stupid. You couldn't just die, could you? Always have to be in control. Always have to win." "Officers," Detective Rivera nodded. And the police moved to handcuff James. As they led him away, James turned back to Emma, his eyes burning with hate. "You think this is over? You've got nothing. I'll be out on bail by tonight." Emma met his gaze steadily. "I heard everything, James. Every plan. Every lie. And now everyone else will hear it too." After James and Vanessa were taken away, the room fell silent. The lawyer stood awkwardly by the window, clutching his briefcase. "Mrs. Richards, I had no idea," he said. "I was told the power of attorney was legitimate," he continued. "Save it," David said sharply. "The DA will want to speak with you about your role in all of this." As the lawyer was escorted out, Emma finally let herself relax against the pillows. It was over. After weeks of pretending, of lying completely still while her husband plotted her death, she was finally free. Sarah rushed to her side, checking her vitals. "Are you okay? That must have been incredibly stressful." Emma nodded, suddenly exhausted. "It was worth it. Thank you, all of you. I wouldn't have survived without your help." "What happens now?" Max asked, shoving his hands in his pockets awkwardly. "Now," Emma said with determination, "I take back what's mine and build something better." 3 weeks later, Emma stood at the entrance to her main dealership, supported by a cane but standing proudly on her own. The building looked different somehow. Brighter. Full of possibility. "Ready? Ready?" David asked, standing beside her. Emma took a deep breath and nodded. "More than ready." As they walked through the front doors, employees stopped what they were doing, turning to stare in amazement. Word of Emma's recovery and James's arrest had spread, but few had seen her in person since before the accident. Mrs. Richards, one of the receptionists, gasped, rushing forward. "We had no idea you were coming in today." "I thought it was time," Emma said with a smile. "Time to come home." The news of her arrival spread quickly through the building. Staff members appeared from offices in the service area, gathering in the main showroom. Emma recognized faces. Some had been with her for years. Others were newer, hired during her absence. "I want to thank you all for keeping this place running during my absence," Emma addressed the group. "I know it hasn't been easy, especially with the confusion of the past few months." An understatement. Of course, James had fired loyal employees, hired his own people, and begun dismantling the culture Emma had carefully built. The damage would take time to repair. I also want to introduce or reintroduce for some of you, David Shin, Emma continued, gesturing to her side. As you may have heard, David was instrumental in uncovering what really happened during my accident. As of today, he's officially my Chief Operations Officer. Applause broke out, especially from the longtime employees who knew and respected David. There will be changes in the coming weeks, Emma continued. Some necessary restructuring. But I want you all to know that this company is back in my hands, and together, we're going to make it stronger than before. After the impromptu meeting, Emma settled into her office, now cleared of James's belongings, with David to discuss next steps. The forensic accountants have traced most of the assets James transferred, David reported. We should be able to recover about 80% of what he took. That's better than I expected, Emma admitted. What about the legal situation? Emma asked. The DA is building a strong case. James and Vanessa were both denied bail. The flight risk was too high, and the attempted murder charges are serious. Max's testimony about the brake tampering is crucial, David said. And the recordings from your hospital room are damning. Emma nodded, looking out the window at the dealership floor. And what about Max? How is he doing with the new job? David smiled. Surprisingly well. He started in the detail department, but he's shown an aptitude for mechanical work. The service manager wants to move him to oil changes and basic maintenance. Make sure he gets whatever training he needs, Emma said. After what he did for me. Finding those brake parts. Risking his safety. I owe him a real chance. Already arranged, David assured her. And Sarah called. She wanted to know if you're still coming to dinner on Friday. Emma smiled. During her recovery, she'd grown close to the nurse who had risked her job to help expose James's plan. Their friendship had been unexpected but valuable, one of the few positive outcomes of the whole ordeal. Tell her I wouldn't miss it, Emma replied. Now let's talk about that foundation idea I mentioned. Over the next month, Emma gradually reclaimed her life. The physical recovery was challenging. Her body had weakened during her hospital stay. Despite Sarah's secret physical therapy sessions, her determination never wavered. The legal proceedings moved forward. James and Vanessa were charged with attempted murder, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The evidence against them was overwhelming, the brake components with clear signs of tampering. The recordings of their conversations. Bank records showing the fraudulent transfers. Testimony from the mechanic James had paid to sabotage Emma's car. The mechanic, facing his own charges, had agreed to testify against James in exchange for leniency. His detailed account of how James had approached him, what he'd been paid, and exactly what he'd done to ensure the brakes would fail at high pressure sealed the case. 6 months after Emma had first opened her eyes and heard her husband plotting her death, she hosted a small gathering at her home, not the mansion she had shared with James, but a new place. Modern and open, with none of the painful memories of her old life. Sarah arrived first, bringing a bottle of wine and a warm hug. You look amazing, she said, stepping back to admire Emma's recovery. The cane is gone as of last week. And the confirmed physical therapy finally paid off. David and his wife arrived next, followed by Max. Almost unrecognizable in clean clothes. His beard neatly trimmed. His face healthier after months of regular meals and stable housing. The place looks great, Max said awkwardly, clearly still uncomfortable in social situations, but making an effort. Thank you, Emma replied warmly. How's the new apartment? Still getting used to having 4 walls and a roof. Max admitted with a small smile. But it's good. Really good. Emma led them to the patio overlooking the city lights. As they settled into comfortable chairs, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. I have news, she announced once they all had drinks in hand. The Emma Richards Foundation is officially up and running. Our first initiative will be a partnership with the downtown shelter to provide job training and transitional housing for homeless individuals. That's wonderful, Sarah said, squeezing Emma's hand. I know that's been a dream of yours since the hospital. It has, Emma acknowledged. And I have more news. The jury returned a verdict today in James and Vanessa's trial. The group fell silent, waiting. Guilty on all counts, Emma said simply. James will serve a minimum of 25 years. Vanessa got 15. A collective sigh of relief passed through the group. Justice had been served. To new beginnings, David proposed, raising his glass. And to unexpected friendships, Emma added, looking around at the unlikely allies who had become her closest friends. Without you, I wouldn't be here. You didn't just save my life. You helped me build a better one. As the evening continued, Emma found herself stepping away for a moment of solitude. Standing at the edge of her patio, looking out at the city lights, she reflected on how completely her life had changed. She had lost her marriage, discovered terrible betrayal, and faced death. But in the process, she had found something far more valuable, people who stood by her not for what she could give them, but for who she truly was. Sarah joined her by the railing. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked. Emma smiled. "I was just thinking about how strangely life works. James thought he was taking everything from me, my business, my wealth, my life. But in trying to destroy me, he actually gave me something priceless." "What's that?" Sarah asked. "Clarity," Emma replied. "About what matters. Who matters?" She glanced at Sarah, their eyes meeting with unspoken understanding. The friendship that had begun in that hospital room had grown into something deeper, more meaningful than either had expected. "I'd go through it all again," Emma said softly, "if it meant ending up right here." The next morning, Emma drove herself to the hospital for one final checkup. As she walked through the corridors where she had once been confined, she felt a strange sense of gratitude. This place had been her prison, but also where she had found the strength to fight back. Dr. Patel greeted her with a warm smile. "Mrs. Richards, it's good to see you up and about. How are you feeling?" "Better than I have in years," Emma replied truthfully. "And please call me Emma." After a thorough examination, Dr. Patel declared her fully recovered physically. "You're in excellent health. And mentally well. You've shown remarkable resilience." "I had help," Emma acknowledged. "Good people who stepped up when I needed them most." As Emma prepared to leave, Dr. Patel hesitated. "You know, in all my years of practice, I've never seen anything quite like your case. The woman who had to pretend to be in a coma to save her own life." Emma smiled. Sometimes playing dead is the only way to truly start living. Later that day, Emma drove away from the hospital for the final time with Sarah beside her. As they turned onto the main road, Emma felt the last weight lift from her shoulders. "Where to?" Sarah asked. "Forward," Emma replied simply. "Just forward." You've enjoyed this story of betrayal, resilience, and justice. Please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more incredible true stories to life. What would you have done in Emma's position? Would you have had the courage to pretend to be unconscious while your spouse plotted against you? Let us know in the comments below. Remember to ring that notification bell so you never miss our daily uploads. Until next time.